What's going on, everyone? It's Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com coming back with another episode of the RMR podcast today, joined by special guest George Sadler of Gelato. How you doing today, George?
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, man, we're just talking about the Pacific Northwest a little bit offline, man. I'm up here in this beautiful weather in the PNW. I know you're down there in California. But before we get too deep into anything, I start off every episode with our guest origin story around the plant being cannabis. So whether that's personal, professional, a mix of both, man, whatever you choose, being vulnerable and sharing, just kind of curious when you and cannabis started your relationship.
I did this not too long ago, and it's kind of weird to talk about, but I was around 11 years old. Much as I hate to say it, it was around 11 years old. And, I had older brothers, and, I was, I was touched at like 11. so, I mean, and that's only a couple years ago. I mean, I'm now 55, but, yeah, my brothers were very influenced, and of course, when you grow up with 7 kids in your family, and my older brothers, a couple of them were a bit older, so we had a big generation gap there. But I I got into their fun stuff, and so we all lived together. My dad built a bedroom, and my 3 brothers and I were all in the same room, which was kind of crazy now that I look back at it, but that's what we did. And he had taken the garage and converted it to a bedroom, and so I was exposed to a lot of things at a young age, and you know, better or worse, or however you want to look at it. I'm glad it was that and not other things, but yeah, I was around 11 years old when I had my first cannabis experience.
First kid, yeah, it's a little bit younger. I say that the average age on here is around 15, so that's a little bit on the younger side. But I always ask that question because I just feel like it. There are different stories. People come from different backgrounds and different experiences, and everything normalizes the plant, whether it's 11, 15, 41. We get people on here that come from different perspectives. What time did what
Well,
at what
I
point did you
mean,
start?
I wasn't an avid consumer at 11. That was my first experience,
Sure.
and keep in mind, my parents were kind of tiptoeing on the hippie side and whatnot, and so we had a lot of exposure to that with my family, my parents, and they were very open about that side of cannabis. So I mean, it was definitely young, but um, you know, I don't discredit that to a lot of the positions that I put myself in through my life, and whether they're good or bad. I can tell you that I'm a big advocate with my family for cannabis, and we go that direction for a lot of different reasons, and whether it's having a headache or anxiety, or kind of all of the above, or just recreational, having a great time and having fun, and everybody kind of having a nice flow. So I'm a huge advocate for that across the board.
At what point you start dipping your toes into the industry?
So that's the ongoing story, is that I smoked all the way through, and I can tell you, um, where you're at. The best weed that I ever smoked, for most of my years, was actually in Oregon, and I can tell you that, man, there's some amazing flower grown in the hills of Oregon, and and now legally it's still probably is. I mean, I haven't been there for a bit, but some amazing flower grown up in the Pacific Northwest. And then, some years down the road, I played that part when my kids were growing up, where I tried to hide it as much as possible. And my son Cody would, he 6, 7 years old, he'd come out, Dad, what, something smells in there, and I was in the bathroom, trying to hide it. And so I quit. Honestly, I quit for a period of time, and then I realized, that no matter what happens as you go through this life, you're going to have these experiences, And that dark side of cannabis was, at one point kind of embarrassing for me. And then I realized, listen, this isn't the problem that we have in our society. That it's actually solves. I don't want to say solves, but it helps people in a lot of those ways. And so, ironically, my son was in his fourth year of college, and he, came into me with the idea of growing marijuana. That was in 2000, late 2010. And I said, man, 4 years of school and business and all this, and this is where we're headed. Um, you know, and that's honestly, that's how it started. Cody came in, and I thought, oh, maybe this is just going to be kind of a phase. And 2, 3 weeks later, he came into my office and he had his medical card, and he's like, I'm want to do this. So we started with 6 plants in a garage, and long story short, there's a lot of story in between that time and when we were growing, and then from there, delivery service and becoming one of the largest delivery services in Southern California. I have no idea. I mean, we look back at this sometimes, and I just got off him and I were on some meetings up in LA just now, and you just have these conversations. It's just crazy to see that we went from there to doing about 150 million a year. Once again, this is not an overnight. There's 13 years in this. And people hear, they're like, oh yeah, marijuana, you're rich. No, no, it took a long time. And never having any funding from outside, we always did this on our own, and I was never rich. So I didn't like walk in with a couple $1 million to throw at this. I mean, we went through a lot of stuff. And so yeah, late 2010 is when we put the first plants in, and we had no idea what we were doing. And we went from there. We sold that company almost 3 years ago, and then we started Gelato.
And so what was kind of the inspiration behind Gelato? Obviously, you built in a couple different verticals and built some pretty well-known brands. What was the inspiration behind Gelato, and kind of, both business-wise and personally?
So, I mean, Cody and I thought we really consider ourselves not done in the industry by all means, because we've always had a hand on the industry. But we really struggled towards the end of that sale, and there's a lot to be said on that part of it with Platinum Vape. We really struggled on the end of that sale, and the ironic thing is that when we finally closed out that whole deal, it was a great thing for us. I'm not going to lie. I mean, we did really well in that. When you consider what other people have done in the industry with sales, we we had a little bit in paper, and we finalized that and had the buyout, and we, rather than carry the paper, we ended up getting cashed out on that as well. And we were just kind of saying, okay, let's really take back and see where we want to go, and what avenues we wanted to be in. We still had a lot going on in the cannabis industry outside of that as well. And then our employees, they just weren't happy. And we left, and they started knocking on our door. And this is the truth. And we said, wow, we weren't really ready to jump back into this and to build another brand. It's just a huge process and huge undertaking. And then with the markets doing what they're doing, and it was just like, Cody said, man, do you have it in you? I said, hey, if you want to do this, let's do it. But I said, I'm not going to do it without the right people. And we had everybody kind of really kind of self-check, because it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And so Cody and I literally spent every day for the next couple of weeks sitting around, just kind of really soul searching to figure out if it was something that we really wanted to jump back into. And we kind of said, yeah, if this team wants to do it, then let's pursue it. And so we had everybody come over, And we said, look, we want you guys to take a couple of days, and if this is something that you really want to do, understand that this is a process. I mean, everybody knew because they've been with us forever. And we met the very next week right here, in my house, and we said, if one person doesn't want to do this or doesn't have 100%, then it's just not something that we're going to do. And they did, and here we are.
Everybody pushed the chips to the center of the table, man.
Everybody jumped on, and we said, all right, well, away we go. And it's been, I'm not going to lie, man, it's been a lot of it's what's happened in this last 16 months has been nothing short of amazing. And our team is they're unbeatable, from top to bottom. It's just amazing. It's amazing to watch people grow. That's a big thing for us, is to see people grow.
Yeah, and I mean, and that teamwork aspect is so important, because when you look at, starting a brand or a company, right? The idea phase is, there's unlimited ideas out there. I could do this better, or I have this cool idea. Like, everyone's got a bajillion of those. But then taking that from idea to, okay, this is actually a valid idea that we think is a lot of work, and then executing launching it is a whole nother, onslaught of sleepless nights that you're not paid for. And then if you do catch momentum, then it's like a whole nother hump of almost starting back at zero. And with you guys starting a new brand, it was like starting at zero, and then understanding there's going to be a couple times in that process where the grind does not stop.
Yeah. And that's, this, and that's exactly what I'm saying. It people go, you did this. Yeah, but that doesn't, it's like having a one-hit wonder. It doesn't, because you did it, doesn't give you any credibility towards doing it again. And so there's a lot of apprehension there. It's just anxiety is huge on that level, because we don't want to let anybody down, and we have families that rely on us. And so we had to make this commitment. And then, not to mention, our own personal families, they take a big hit when it comes to doing this. It's not an easy feat. And I've been doing this for a little bit, and I've watched people lose, fortunes in this industry, that thought that they were walking in the door of, that money tree that just shakes down. And it's so opposite of that. And it's always been kind of a frustrating thing for Cody and I, especially because, people see things how they are now, and they believe that that's how it's been since we made this decision to get into cannabis. And no matter how much you tell people, it's so opposite. They think you're lying to them, and that you're telling them something because you don't want them to do. No, I want everybody to reap the benefits of being involved in this plant, and what the industry is really allowing us to do. But I also want people to understand how real this is as a business. This isn't the days of, the compassionate care, where, people weren't paying their taxes and they had all this extra money. And, that's not what this is anymore. This is a business. And, it's tough, because you have to imagine having a business that it's hard enough as it is, but then to have all these people against you, taxes, all the municipalities, the government, like, all of this stuff are lightning strikes against you. And you have to still run a business. It's just, the big thing for people and family and friends, they get it. But people get a few dollars in their pocket, and then they come to the industry thinking that it's that gold rush. And man, I'm telling you, maybe it is in some ways, but you got to be thick skinned, and you have to really be durable when it comes to trying to get something off the ground here. So, like I said, and so going back to that, it was amazing to us, because we anticipated a 3 to 4 year run, to get anywhere within the ranks. And for us to now be in the top 10 again, and realistically, within the 7 or 8, in less than a year, we were hitting that number. We're baffled. And I think what we found out was that the cannabis is now wanting to have some fresh air and fun. And how we ended up with gelato, I have no idea. We had trademarked it. How it was never taken, I have no idea. That was a big feat in itself. And our attorneys were just like baffled, especially like trademark attorneys on something like that. And what we've found through going through this process again is that people, they want this to have a grand experience in cannabis and be fun. And now we're kind of in the open, and so we've been really receptive to what people's wants and needs are as a brand, and not just the consumer, but also at the retail level. And I don't know. I mean, we're really having a lot of fun with it, and it seems to be ringing out quite well.
And what are some of those things that you took, obviously, from building that first company and exiting, right? Like taking some of those lumps, taking some of those wins, and internalizing that. And then, like you said, round two doesn't necessarily, the path to runway isn't necessarily easier because the consumer is not going to be able to distinguish, oh, this brand's from that brand. So there's immediate demand, right? You have to build demand. But what are some of those things that you took in those wins and losses that helped shape, either made that runway a little bit shorter or just helped shape the decisions on this second brand launch?
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was like a pinpoint, and I've been talking about this, and like we're kind of trying to put our finger on the pulse as well of I think the big thing is, if anybody understands the industry and right now what it's doing, I think we're in this cleansing. I don't know any other way to put it. And we're in this cleansing, and taxes have been a real struggle for a lot of retailers and a lot of people, because it's just been a big hit. And I think there was the CDTFA put out a in bulletin, or whatever you want to, I don't know what you call it, where there was over 200 retailers in the state of California that did not make their tax base 2 months ago. And then and I don't know how they come up with these numbers, but they said they anticipate over 90% of them going out of business because of that. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, I've seen a lot of just unfortunate situations where these taxes that are owed they're insane amounts of money, and how you come back with that, I don't know. And then supposedly there's a dip in the industry, and I don't think there's a dip. I mean, we're growing month over month, and have been. I think what you're seeing is that there's a lot of open retail now, whereas if you look at the municipalities and how they started, the licensing was very selective and minimal. And now they've opened up the floodgates on licensing. So we're seeing a lot more stores across the board. And so the competition is much greater. And as a manufacturer, and also we own retail as well, we're not seeing a real dip in here. We're seeing a lot more competition across the board. So I don't know. I can't really put my finger on what exactly is happening, but I mean, cannabis is still going crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the same amount of people are smoking weed, if not more.
Yeah, exactly.
They might be spending less per transaction, and like you said, the competition aspect popped up, and then obviously you just look at capital markets in general. Money was real cheap previous to this last eight or 9 months, and so companies were in growth mode and didn't really prioritize positive cash flow. And when you move into this market, positive cash flow is life or death.
It is, and I think you kind of hit it there too. Is that money was really cheap? I mean, we've never taken a dime, so we don't even know what it's like to raise money or to have that type of outside funding. It was always really confusing to us for funding and people wanting percentages, but we just never accepted it. We never needed it because we lived within our means, and we stayed on that path of growth that worked for us, and not what we believed everybody else wanted. But I think you're right. I think there's there was a lot of money that was put in front of a lot of these people, a lot of retailers growing, expanding at rates that were just unbelievable. And they, I didn't even know what a tranche was until about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so the tranches would keep coming, but they had to hit these numbers. And then I think what's happened in a lot of cases is they didn't hit the numbers and those tranches kind of fizzled out. And then all of a sudden you get hit with taxes and all these things. And you were anticipating that, $6, $8, $10 million, nugget coming in. And now they're holding back on those because you're not hitting those numbers. It just starts a kind of a domino effect. And so, I give all the credit, as I have continuously, to my son being, very, very good with money. And I did this for my whole life. I've been in businesses my whole life. And then when we got to this point with my son, I had said, look, you handle that side of it. I just want to spend it. I just want to. So he's very good about keeping me in line with where we're at, and so he's never known anything about lending and people throwing money at us. So we just kind of always stayed within our means, and there's never been I don't cross that line when it comes to battling him about money, because I think he's proven himself to be much better than I am with money. So it works.
Let the young man cook. So I know you said you were operating in delivery, back in the earlier days. But
Yeah.
obviously you guys have the dispensary now. Is this your first entry into retail?
Oh, no. So I mean, that's what I was saying. Like the story we were talking about a little bit offline is, we go back and we started our first grow. We had 6 plants in our garage, and that turned into the fact that we couldn't sell because people thought we were cops. And back then, there wasn't a lot of brick and mortar. It was mostly delivery. So we started delivery service. And within 6 months, we were doing 80 to 100 deliveries a day. And I've gone through every gamut. I mean, it was my son and myself, and we were driving around in our cars, and people would call this number, and you would have thought that we were the biggest corporate company in the world. And we were doing deliveries right out of our house. And it was really kind of a funny story. And then we went to where, we hired friends to drive, and then we started a little office. And about a year and a half after we started, we had a line on a retail that we started ourselves up in Oceanside. And that went, from the start where we couldn't get somebody to even come to our door for probably 3 weeks. And then we went to where we were doing 600-700 people a day. And at that time, we made a bigger cultivation. And so we went from the delivery, still doing deliveries, much larger cultivation, first retail store about a year and a half in. And then we opened up, we had 4 retail locations, and one was in Oceanside, one was in Pacific Beach, and then Chula Vista and La Mesa. And it just kind of spiraled from there. I mean, we just continued to put everything back into this company. And, you got to understand, back then, people were getting raided, and you lose everything at the drop of a hat. So it's kind of like being on the craps table. That's why the way I looked at it back then is, you don't make any money unless the money's on the table. And that's how we looked at it. And we reinvested every single dime that we had back into it. And it could be delivery. And then we felt like diversifying was huge for us, because if something got busted, we would still hopefully have something else on this side. And then eventually we started manufacturing, and that's a whole other side of that. I mean, I've been robbed robbed at the store. I've been robbed at gunpoint and doing deliveries at knife, and just stuff that, most people, I'm so happy, will never have to go through in this industry. If they played it out really well. But I mean, we had friends that have been robbed and shot and, just horrible things that you can't imagine. I was never in that background either, but it was part of what we unfortunately didn't plan for. But, having a retail location and, people robbing us at nighttime and closing, and it's just, one of those things. And eventually we shut down the cultivation side and we started focusing on manufacturing. And then we ended up selling all of our stores at that time. We sold them to a group of guys, and went full into manufacturing. And that's how we started Platinum Vape back in the day. And then we wound down the delivery service at the same time. And then we were 100% manufacturing, and we had a really rough go. And that was a big problem for us in the beginning. Was we thought we really made a mistake because we weren't good at manufacturing at all. And so we finally hired some really good chemists and figured out that side of it and really started marketing. And we went to that. And it's 13 years of
Yeah.
really just working and
Throwing
learning.
throwing shit at the wall, seeing what sticks,
Oh, if I've lost so much money in this industry that and doing just that, throwing shit at the walls. And we were just kind of talking about it today too. Like, man, the money that we've lost in this, we're so fortunate to be, to get through that side of it. And a lot of people that didn't. And the benefit always comes back to us is that we never owed anybody money. And so when we took a hit, we didn't, we would feel it miserably, but we didn't have somebody on the backside of us going, okay, where's my money? Um, so really lucky for that part, for sure.
Absolutely. And one of the things I want to ask too is being an entrepreneur that's obviously you started multiple companies, multiple brands, dabbled in all these verticals. I think one of the biggest challenges for entrepreneurs is, again, back to that, like the idea is so easy, right? Like coming up with the idea is easy. The execution and building something that works and momentum is a whole nother story. But being an entrepreneur, we're plagued, we might be plagued with having done something, of taking an idea and putting it in motion, right? Having done that, you want to replicate it, but the idea part is the funnest part. How do you kind of keep yourself in check from not chasing too many shiny objects and kind of staying focused at the task at hand?
Well, I'll tell you how. When you realize how much money you lose on those shiny objects, it makes it easier to kind of turn. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that fish in the pond that has been caught and released enough that he doesn't chase that lure so much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's a money. It all comes down to a money thing. I'll be honest with you. Those shiny objects are, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. There's a lot to be said about that. And yeah, we've learned a lot on that. And I mean immensely have taken some big hits. And so, yeah, we really, Cody and I, we consult with our team um, a lot. And then Cody and I, we spend a lot of time just ourselves going through each one of these phases of things that we're doing. And sometimes he'll go, "Oh, you want to do that? Remember what happened here?" And I go, "Oh shit, yeah, that's right." So it really does benefit to have a second person involved, and then our team that can remind us of, yeah, you guys remember that mistake that we made? Remember that one really hurt. Yeah. Because you get caught up in this, and the biggest thing is fast growth. Slow down. I can tell, if I gave anybody any advice in this industry, it's slow down. There's no rush. There really isn't a rush, and go at your own pace, and grow at your own pace. Don't worry about everybody else around you and what everybody else is doing, because it's all smoke and mirrors. When you look at what these big companies are doing, it's all smoke and mirrors. I hate to say it, but there isn't a lot of truth in, unfortunately, a lot of this stuff that's going on in the big side of this cannabis stuff. And we've kind of seen that. We've been able to live through that and see that the money, there's a lot of fake money in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take those numbers that these big companies are doing. They're gaining a lot of ground in some ways, but they're losing a ton more because there's no money there at that level. When you see these guys getting, 30, 40, $50 million, what are they doing with it? You know what I mean? Cody and I sat back and we said, we've had people that wanted to give us 10, $15 million for a percentage of the company. I said, what do you, Cody goes, what would we do with it? What do you do with $15 million? I mean, I understand a lot of people go, oh, I would do this and this and this, but that's not, there's no truth to that. You can't grow that fast in this industry. And so there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, honestly. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the industry, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely something we see, and more reports come out every day, seeing this, giving validation to that statement. In regards to your guys' growth, like you said, you're growing month over month, and I know you attributed a lot of that to the team. What are some of the other things you feel like in terms of just like listening to the market, and by listening to the market, kind of what are some of those metrics you do to just gauge, feedback on what you're doing, and then just find those gaps and opportunities within the market itself?
Well, I mean, we always use the analogy of an airplane, and you're only as good as the team that works with you on that plane, and we're just the pilots. And I know it sounds maybe a little trivial, but that's how we judge this, and we appreciate the fact that our team is allowing us to be in the front of this and fly it, and everybody behind us is wanting to make sure that we take off and land safely, and that's what our job is. But it goes so much deeper than just Cody and I, and with the team that you have, there's a lot of trust that goes into that, and so we really feel like having, first of all, we are very involved. We're in the office every single day. We're not these owners that are, don't get me wrong, I love to gallivant around, but at one point we had a couple of jets and we don't go anywhere. So, we had them in a charter service and it sounds great. All that stuff sounds great, but it's not us. We are so involved with everything that goes on in this company. And that's the great thing, is that our team knows. I mean, all the way down, I think right now we're probably just right around 150 employees. Every single person that works for us or with us, is what we like to say, has our phone numbers. They have 100% direct access to us at any given time of the day. Nobody's ever turned away. We have an open door policy. If you're not in a meeting, your door is open. That 100%. We don't have closed doors, and we allow anybody. And so if we're walking through any of our facilities, we don't want employees that are like, oh shit, there's the owners.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're just like anybody else. And we're just the pilots on this plane, and we want everybody to be comfortable and to ask us questions, to say, hey, what's up, and not be like, oh, Mr. Sadler. I shun all that. This is how we dress. If you see 90% of the time, I get shit all the time because I wear a white V-neck or a black V-neck. I don't. That's what I have. That's what I have. There's nothing super crazy about it, but we pay attention to not only what our team's needs are. The thing that we've found mostly in this last year and a half, 2 years, as we were tailing out the last business, is the needs of the retailers. Everybody tends to forget that, what are their needs? What do they need from us as a manufacturer and as somebody that's going to partner with them? And so you will see, for us, we're partnered in every angle that we can, whether it's billboards, any type of print, social media. We share in those costs with everybody. And we look at this as the retailers go, because we have them as well. What are the needs? They need people to partner with, they need somebody that's going to be a partner, shoulder to shoulder to sell these brands. And so that's what we do. Our sales team knows they get with the buyers, they get with the owners. We do as well. We hold relationships with everybody, and we want to understand what are their needs. And it's not just today, it's tomorrow, it's next week. How do we grow with you, and how do we help you grow? And that's been a huge response for us as this company, Gelato. People are really taking a better look at who we are and how we can help. And then the biggest thing is delivering. Is when somebody says, "Hey, you know what? I mean, we could really use some help in this portion of what we're doing." We're there. And just had an experience just recently where we've had a store that got robbed, and I understand it can be damaging for stores to lose an inventory like that. And then as a brand, most other brands jump up and go, "Well, you still owe me money, and I'm sorry that happened, but how are you going to pay me?" Whereas our side of it, and our sales team knows immediately, how can we help you guys? And they're like, "Whoa, what do you mean? How can you help? We just got robbed. I can't pay you right now." I understand that. So what are we going to do? How are we going to move off of this? What do you mean? What do you mean? What are we going to do? Well, how can we help you guys? We send over a $10,000 order for free. Here, let's get this thing rolling again.
Yeah.
Well, we still owe you guys this. I said, I understand that. But if we can't get you back on track, how are we going to generate money to get us paid? And people, we have people that just go, "What's the catch?" Well, there's no catch. We're not in this for next week. We're in this for next year, the year after. So, you take a hit, we'll take a hit with you. Let's get some product back in the stores on the shelf immediately, and we'll deal with that stuff down the road. People, and that's just one type of what I'm talking about and how we deal with these stores. And the same thing's happening with these taxes. I understand you got a problem, but what are we going to do? I'm not going to come hammer you for the money. Yes, we want to get paid, but we got to figure it out. It's been a huge success for us on that level. I don't have the money to just throw around like, people might think, but I want to get paid, and me hammering somebody that is already down doesn't help. And, you're going to be here 5 years from now. We want to be here too. So let's figure out how we can make this work. That's been probably a bigger aspect for us to move forward in the industry.
Humanize those relationships and build it off of like that, just that relationships, man.
Yeah.
George, well, I really appreciate your time, man. Appreciate you breaking down some of your insights and how you guys approach the game. For people out there that are interested, gelatocanna.com or gelatoretail.com for the dispensaries. Anything else you want to plug before I get you up out of here, man?
No, we're good. Thank you. Listen, I appreciate every minute I can get on this.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you. This is the RMR podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe somewhere underneath George's face. Go ahead and mash that. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, make sure to favorite it. Check it out. Check out another episode. Stay tuned for future episodes. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. We got more content coming. Well, it's the end of the week, so probably not this week, but check back in with us next week for new episodes and new content every single day of the week at respectmoreagent.com. Appreciate you.